I can't join with audio in here because everything's through the microphone.
Do we know that she connected her audio?
No.
Can we ask her?
She said she uses it all the time.
Sure.
Are we connected?
I heard her.
Yes. We got you on speaker. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, hi, Brent.
All right, it is 7 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Councilmember Pursuant.
Mayor, sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
before we move on. Councilmember Mock's video needs to be on, otherwise she cannot participate remotely.
Kristy?
Yep, I'm coming, I'm getting it. We're having some troubles here. Okay, how about, let's see.
We got you.
We can see you.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. You heard that from Dave. It needs to be on consistently throughout the meeting.
Yep, I'm doing my best here, thank you.
Okay.
All right. I still need a second, right? I'll second.
Yes, we got a motion by Councilmember Pursuant, a second by Councilmember Welsh. Any further discussion? Let's do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Mock,
Aye.
Councilmember Welch,
Aye.
Councilmember Sayre,
Aye.
Councilmember Pershman,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Does not look like we have anyone here this evening for community comment. We don't have any presentations and reports, nor do we have any public hearings. So moving right along to the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
A motion by Councilmember Welsh.
I'll second.
And a second and a tie vote to Councilmember Sayre. Any further discussion? Councilmember Mock, I think we need you back on video, please.
I don't know why it went up.
Okay.
Did you,
A roll call
Okay.
vote, please.
Councilmember Mock,
aye.
Councilmember Welch,
Aye.
Councilmember Sayre,
Aye.
Councilmember Pershman,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. All right, on to item 8.1, business items, the bond sale. Shudi M. Santal, welcome.
I'll just introduce Jess Green here from Northland Securities. So we had a bond sale today for our 2024A bond. The bond is made up of 3 different portions. We have the equipment portion of the bond, which is $1 million, which will be used for public service vehicles and equipment. Just so you know, the equipment needs to have a useful life of at least the length of the bond, which was 10 years for that part. Another portion of the bond is capital improvement portion, which is just over $1 million, and it will be used for expanding an area within the fire station as well as improvements to the roof and HVAC. The bond payment will be due over a 20-year time period for that. And then the third portion of the bond was a water portion, just over $3 million, and will be used to recondition Water Tower 2, replace all obsolete electrical controls on wells 1 and 3, add a generator, and then replace electrical controls at well number 4. And those bond payments are also due over a 20-year time period. Jess will have more details about the bond sale and other items. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Jess, it says Tammy on my.
I know.
Only as good as my
We're
notes.
dividing and conquering tonight, so we're in a couple different cities today.
Happy to see you.
Mayor, Council, good evening.
As Lynn just went over, we have a resolution for your consideration tonight for the issuance and sale of $5,075,000 in general obligation bonds. This series of bonds will be considered Series 2024A. We did prepare a sales summary with the sort of high-level detail of the sale results that occurred this morning. So we took bids on behalf of the city this morning at 10 a.m. The sale went really well. So to sort of cut to the chase, we got 7 bids. So a really nice showing this morning. And a true interest cost that was considerably lower than what we had anticipated in the finance plan. The market has moved in the issuer's direction over the past couple weeks with some of the economic information that's come out recently. So that's also helped the sale here today. But without further ado, I will get into, again, the high-level detail of the bond sale. So, of course, proceeds here being used to finance the various pieces that Lynn just went over. So we've got some water tower improvements, we've got some capital equipment being purchased, and then facility improvements to both the fire hall and then also the public works building. We do have sort of a combined structure here with that 20-year structure for the capital improvement plan portion and then also the water portion, and then the 10 years for some of the equipment that's being purchased. Again, Lynn mentioned sort of that shorter useful life for some of those equipment purchases being vehicles and such. So again, we've got sort of a combined use here. The bonds will be considered a general obligation of the city. That being said, we will have some net revenues of these cities' utilities coming in to help offset the tax levy that will go along with the debt service payments. Method of sale here today, competitive. TD Securities out of New York was the low bid today with, again, 7 bids coming in this morning. We did have a rating assigned to this bond issue, and S&P did affirm the city's outstanding rating of AA, so very strong rating for the city. Just very quickly, I'll make a couple of comments on the rating report related to some of the positive comments that we saw in that report from S&P. So, of course, they comment on the very strong reserves of the city. They comment, of course, on the robust financial and capital planning that the city is doing, and that's sort of mitigating some of the debt burden that the city is seeing. Now, we do have some comments in here related to an elevated debt burden. That being said, we see that often with cities that are growing and need to replace and build out infrastructure. So certainly not comments that we are concerned about. But then again, just sort of rounding things out with the growing economy, the solid financial position, and then your robust financial practices and policies here in Carver. So a lot of great comments in that report. Certainly happy to take any questions that the council may have related to the rating process. Final maturity here, February 1 of 2045. We do have a call date, February 1 of 2032. So once you hit that call date, you can call the bonds in at that point, any day thereafter. And you can call them in whole or in part. So you can call them in to refinance, to restructure, to pay off a portion of the bonds if you want to do that. But again, that begins February 1 of 2032. Par amount here again, $5,075,000 and a true interest cost of 3.58. Council probably doesn't recall, but when we talked to you back in June, we were looking at about 4.38. So a really nice drop in the true interest cost. Bid tab is on the following page. So again, TD Securities being that low bid. Piper out of Minneapolis was the cover bid, but about 5 basis points worse. So it's a nice close cover is how we would refer to that. So very nice to see that. And then the sources and uses are found on page 4. And then from there, you'll see a number of different schedules. So we've got the combined issuance. So you're seeing that 10-year structure, or the first 10 years being a little bit higher in overall debt service and then dropping down in the second 10 years. And then we've got broken out by portion. So you've got schedules for the water portion, the equipment portion, and then also the CIP portion. There are a few levy schedules that are included here. And then the last 2 pages are really just meant to provide a snapshot of kind of how the market's been behaving, both in the 5-year term and then looking at the 20-year snapshot as well. With that, I will stand for any questions that the council may have.
Questions? Kristy, you want to go first?
Nope.
No, Kristy has
I don't
none.
have anything.
Okay. Any other
I
questions?
don't have anything. Thank you.
Or any questions, really?
I did.
Go ahead, Reed.
So Brett talked to us about we got a premium. Could you just maybe give a slightly more
Sure.
in-depth explanation
You bet.
of that? And what if we decide to spend that instead of using it to basically take down the principal, or
Sure.
just kind of the options there?
Yep. So if you turn to page 5, it might be easier to
Okay.
take a look at that. So on page 5, you've got the pricing summary. So what it means when you receive premium is that investors are looking for a higher interest rate or a coupon on the bonds. And in order to get that, you are providing effectively that higher interest rate, and they're giving you cash up front. So when you look at the pricing summary, so for example, third column from the far left, you've got the coupon. That's the stated rate of 4% throughout. So for each maturity, we're assigning 4%. What we want to pay attention to and how we get to that true interest cost, which is how we really look at things in this sort of market where we're seeing a lot of premium. So in combination with the cash that's received, the actual yield to the city, so this is that fourth column, is 2.72. So even though the city is, again, paying that higher coupon of 4%, to get that maturity value of $150,000, the investor was going to give you, or is giving you, $152,565, which is that far column. Now, when you are looking at bond sales, you have the ability to either downsize the bonds. If you feel that you may have some additional costs, you can just go ahead and keep that premium and sort of keep the bonds where they are in terms of the size. It's all dependent on the type of project that you're working on and if you feel that you're going to have some additional costs to cover. So in this case, the city is maintaining that par of $5,075,000. That is a reduction from where we started when we went through that finance plan. That is primarily due to that capital improvement plan portion where we had estimated a higher size for some additional improvements, which the city, I don't believe, is going to move forward with solar and those types of things. So that size came down. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that makes sense.
Great.
Any other questions?
I don't have any, just because we've talked about this so many times, and it's really easy to talk about good news. So
Yeah, here.
everyone loves to hear that it cost us less.
Yeah.
So no additional questions. I'm happy with how it turned out.
Lori?
No questions.
Ditto what Eric said. This is great news. It's great to hear the good things
Yeah.
that we're hearing on these ratings calls, and probably good to hear the constructive stuff too. So, thank you. Thanks for bringing in the lower rate. Appreciate it. With that, we need a motion.
So I'll make a motion to approve resolution 135-24, authorizing the issuance and awarding the sale of $5,075,000 general obligation bond series 2024A, pledging for the security thereof, net revenues, and levying a tax for the payment thereof.
Motion by Councilmember Pursuant,
I'll second.
a second by Councilmember Welsh. Any further discussion? All right, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Mock,
Aye.
Councilmember Welch,
Aye.
Councilmember Sayer,
Aye.
Councilmember Pershman,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Have a good night. All right, up next is Creekside Park, plans and specifications. Mr. Schmidt, how's that Zoom app working?
I think we're gonna be okay here, so
Okay.
I'll try to get it pulled up.
While he's pulling that up, Kristy, Aaron had to re-up his Zoom app earlier tonight, so there were a few tense moments on Aaron's end.
Let's see.
Probably Aaron's fault. Kristy's was on
I think so.
Yeah.
But his old Zoom version is dragging everybody down.
Window.
When all else fails, blame the city engineer.
Yep. Let's see, window.
Anyways, thanks everyone for your patience today. I could not possibly be having any more technology issues. There's nothing left to not work correctly in my life tonight when it comes to technology.
All bad games.
There's a Missouri joke in there somewhere.
Please take my big face off there.
Okay. I think we're good to go. So, good evening, Mayor and Council. So, we're going to talk about Creekside Park tonight. Before you was a possible motion to approve plans and specs and order advertisement for bids for that project. This is something that we talked about at your last meeting. So, just a quick overview for everybody. This is a project that we received $350,000 from the DNR through a grant program. The balance being funded through the city's park dedication funds. And the Creekside Park is a former wastewater treatment plant site just off of Old County Road 40, Main Street West, near Jonathan Carver Parkway. Phase 1 of the park includes the build-out of pickleball courts, a small and a large dog park, picnic shelter, trail improvements, and paving an access road and parking lot within the site. There's a phase 2 that was kind of generally shown in the plan documents. None of those improvements are being being reviewed at this time, I should say. That's nothing that's within the 10-year plan. It loosely looked at a disc golf course on that easterly half of the property. Since the original scoping documents were put together with the grant, we looked at adding 2 pickleball courts, which would be the full build out of those pickleball courts for a total of 4. We enlarged the dog park area slightly based on feedback that we received. And then we looked to pave the parking lot and the access road versus having those as gravel. We had a community open house on August 13th. That was actually a really well attended event. We have a summary of the open house comments in the packet tonight, but generally speaking, I think it was a very positive experience. It was held right here in the council chambers, so it was nice to see people attend that meeting. From a financial perspective, the long-term plan has $875,000 in it right now. I presented a budget of $1,085,000 at our last council meeting. Since that time, there was a couple minor items that we looked at adding. Number 1 was an intersection light at the intersection of Jonathan Carver Parkway. That combined with a handful of additional trees within the park itself, I'm recommending we increase the budget by $15,000 for an even $1,100,000. The sources.
Can you clarify intersection light? You're not talking stoplight, you're talking street light.
Correct, just a light for at night to light the intersection,
Okay.
just for enhanced
Thanks, I just
visibility.
didn't want anybody here.
Yeah, sorry,
Or
just a light. Regular light on a pole. The sources, again, would be $350,000 for the DNR grant program, and then the balance coming out of the park dedication funds, which we anticipate having a balance of just north of $1 million by the end of year 2024. So there'll still be a positive fund balance in park dedication at the close of the year is our expectation. From a schedule perspective, again, we're looking at approving plans and moving into the bidding phase after tonight. So I'd be looking to put the advertisement for bids out and then bringing it back to council for your consideration of awarding a construction contract on September 16th. Fall 2024 is when grading could commence on the project with an overall completion date that we would spec out as fall of 2025. So a year from now would be the completion date for the park. So I believe that's all I have for now, so I'd have any questions at this time.
All right, questions, comments, thoughts? This is another one we've seen a number of times.
I guess I'll just make general comments. Yeah, I attended the open house. It was very well attended. I saw most of the rest of the city council there as well. And then I think it was good we got some resident feedback. And I remember this project when I was on the planning commission many years ago. So this has been a long time coming. As the mayor said, we've seen this for a while. I'm glad that it's adding stuff we don't currently have, like the dog park and more pickleball. So it's good news.
All right, any other questions, comments?
Well, so overall, I'm thrilled with the park. I'm happy that we're adding pickleball in. I hear that more and more often. Question about the comments in our staff response. The 100 decibel level sound on the playing field versus what you might hear up the bluff. That 70 dB is outdoors, right? 100 dB outdoors, 70 dB. That's measured outdoors.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, correct.
Okay, so if that's the sound of a television, we probably assume it
sure.
wouldn't. But
if it was, if-
Your home would block the rest of that most likely.
yeah, and Brent added there for some context, if you had a television, playing outside, that's what it would sound like, yeah,
Okay.
so.
I assume that we'll get at some point, be able to give input into the design. I've heard a lot about how you paint these courts can make a big difference in, their playability. And there's been some examples of courts done really well and not well. And it can come down to just how they're painted. So I don't think, probably not a big cost element, but do we get to weigh in on that?
So, so Jonathan Nelson, he's one of the landscape architects who you all know pretty well. He worked with some of our sport court designers who we do a lot of work with. And number one, the orientation of the court was based on input from that. Excuse me?
Rendering, maybe show the rendering.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay, so the orientation is north-south, which is the recommended.
Aaron, can you zoom in just a tish? Thanks.
And then the color scheme, we'd be using the same acrylic sport surfacing similar to what we use in Ironwood Park, with the same paint specifications. And then as far as the fencing goes, it's a 6-foot perimeter fence with a 4-foot separating fence in the middle. So
does the picture here represent how it will look?
yes,
Okay,
it
this is
does.
the final. Got it.
It does, unless there's input from council if they want to see something
Nope, that's good enough for me
differently.
now.
But think of the type of materials being used is what we use at Ironwood Park.
Lori? Eric, are you good? Okay, sorry. Lori?
It's fine.
I don't have any questions, but I have a couple comments I want to share. Aaron Smith's not here, but I think does another great job on grant writing and getting the grant. So
True.
not just a grant, but you get the full amount that you could get. And I know, that was great engagement too at the open house, not just from staff, a few council members popping in and out, but even just our partners with the engineering firm. So I think that was great. And I wanted to just say this in a public forum too, is when we applied for that grant, it was the City of Carver will develop pickleball courts, dog parks, trails, shelter, parking, and site amenities. So it's when we accept this money, this is what we were using it for. And we've been talking about this for a very long time too. So that funds aren't for something else or that we can change. But what I really thought was interesting too, at the little bit that I popped in for the open house is other things came up well, why doesn't the city have this or what do you do with that? And there was just conversations about, oh, have you ever been to this park? Or what about this trail? How do you get there? So I think that is what parks are for and just kind of those community conversations of how we fund things, how long we do the planning, who's all involved is just, it involves, a large dog park for golden retrievers. So, it's just all so wonderful. So, thank you.
Right. Kristy, who is also in favor of the dog park for golden retrievers, no doubt.
Yes. Can you zoom in a little bit again on the map here towards the pickleball courts to start with? Okay. I'm just looking at the placement, and this is a little nitpicky, but where the trees are along the parking lot, I love the trees along the parking lot, but are we, as we have them grow, if they're that close to that corner of the pickleball courts, are they going to grow over the playing area? Is there a reason the courts are that close to the parking lot?
The courts are that close to the parking lot just due to the grading plan. Since the portion along Carver Creek is within the floodplain, we can't do any grading in the floodplain. So that's why everything is kind of kept pretty close to the parking lot. I guess that's kind of the basic answer. But
Okay.
yeah, to your point, I guess the trees is the concern, just having like debris get on the court.
Yeah, I mean,
Leaves.
debris getting on the court, and eventually when it overhangs, you know, just be cognizant of where we put trees in, that when those trees mature, that we're not causing problems of, again, debris on the court, or it's overhanging now, so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's a good comment, and we can, when we go to stake the trees out, Jonathan Nelson, he'll be involved with that, and we can just be intentional about where we put them. And I know he mentioned that at the open house, that we obviously don't want to have trees overhanging and debris getting on the court, that kind of stuff. So, good comment.
Okay. And then can we zoom in towards where the archery? And yes, can we go so that we can see the property lines that are just to the south of it at the same time? Can you talk a little bit about what the contour is and our elevation change from where people are going to be shooting the arrows towards, obviously, where the trees, and I know that the ravine and hill starts. I just wondering where the property line ends, what elevation that is at compared to where people are going to be releasing arrows.
It's kind of, I'm having a hard time seeing the contours on this map, but one thing I know that we're planning to do is incorporate a backstop when we do the grading. So we can shape a berm, I'll call it, per se.
I can add to that. There was the resident who had a question related to decibels was right in the area where it said 20.9 acres, or maybe a little east of that, and the elevation at his home was 75 feet to the surface of the park. So it's probably anywhere from 50 to 75 feet of an elevation change between the park property and the residential homes on the bluff above.
Okay, because my concern is that this, you know, I would not assume that a lot of people are, you know, tracing down these, you know, the incline down to their property line. But I wanted to make sure that if we are going to be releasing arrows in a certain direction, that at that person's property line, that they aren't in any danger.
Aaron's jotting down notes, Kristy, that you may or may not be able to see.
Good point. Thank you, Kristy.
Okay, sorry, cut out a little bit there at the end, so I wasn't sure what was just said.
He said he got it down.
Okay, and so do we think we're good there because we'll have a backstop and the elevation, we're going to be okay?
I think we're good.
I think someone would have to, no matter where an archery range was located, someone would have to intentionally want to shoot an arrow into someone's property, and even if that, I think they'd have to be pretty skilled to get it up there. But I'm also not a great archery mind, so I'm not sure.
Well, most people don't want to lose their arrows because they have to buy more then. I just wanted to make sure that if there wasn't any, you know, a little overshot, that we were, you know, 10 feet or something like that. So
I think by the nature of the topography, that naturally prevents most of that.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds
That's
like
all I
the
had.
Backstop will be the belt and suspenders approach that we always like to do. Okay, my thoughts in no particular order, just getting ahead of ourselves. If when we ever decide to do phase 2 and to do the disc golf, would that still come out of Park Dead? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Kristy, that's only funny because Brent said it into the microphone. Okay. I don't know if it's just not included this level, but I'm not seeing any benches in this. Are there benches for folks?
I think we had a handful of benches in there.
Okay.
I see the we have, actually, right now we have one park bench, 2 picnic tables, and 1 bike rack.
Okay. I think, since we learned, I think it was our last meeting or the meeting before, that the Lions have the availability of potentially donating benches. I'm just thinking of like where people will go. The pickleball courts that my nephews and I have been going to recently have benches along the courts just to throw your bags and your extra equipment and stuff. So I wonder if we don't want to put a few more benches in.
Yeah, and I guess Brent can speak to the other benches that the city has acquired recently, but.
I think those are already.
Okay, they're already used?
Yeah.
Okay. So we can definitely add a couple benches if you want. I don't think
that
that's
might be nice,
too
just for
big of an
folks who
item.
are
Yeah,
watching pickleball or
okay.
just for your stuff.
Waiting for the next game. Too.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good catch.
Let's see. I don't know. I think it was Lori who said such a great job on getting the grant for this. Doing the math, which I'm only a fraction sure of, but it looks like we are paying 68% of the total cost of this, which is a pretty good value, given that we got that very sizable grant from the DNR. My only other question is that I wanted to address some of the feedback or a question that we got from a resident as far as non-resident use of the dog park. I gotta tell you that that's not something that I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about non-residents using any element of our park, and with that, I have absolutely zero desire to charge for access of the dog park, access and use. So, just wanted to share that. I didn't hear anybody who felt differently, but I felt that that needed to be said. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve the plans and specifications and authorize the advertisement for bids for the Creekside Park project.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Mayor Johnson and a second by Councilmember Pershman. Any further discussion? All right, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Mock.
Aye.
Councilmember Welch.
Aye.
Councilmember Sayer.
Aye.
Councilmember Pershman.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to go back to an item that was on the agenda for tonight's work session, which is the 10-year Utilities Infrastructure Plan. Mr. Schmidt.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about the 10-year utilities plan. So again, one of those kind of major buckets in the 10-year financial planning that we're doing here at the City of Carver. This is the plan that looks pretty similar to last year if you were at that discussion, but there are a few changes as well. So I'm planning to go through the whole presentation. Please let me know if you're bored and don't want to talk about
No.
any piece of it, but I think it's all pretty cool. So,
Your enthusiasm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So just to kick things off, thinking about big timing items. When is the next water treatment plant going to be needed? When do we need another water tower in the city? When do we have to drill another well? Those are those big questions, and quite frankly, they're high dollar items that if they sneak up on you, you could be in trouble just from a financial planning perspective. So what we want to try to do is do our best to manage those expectations, which is why we're obviously doing a 10-year plan, which Lynn kicked off last year, which has been super helpful. So just, starting off, I'm going to talk about the water system tonight and then the sewer system. Those are the main items from the enterprise funds where there's a lot of capital investment required. So, to kick off, why are we even talking about a water treatment plant, right? We just completed a plant project in 2022. We drilled 2 new wells. We expanded the plant by 1.5 million gallons per day. So those are all great things that were done, and that maximized kind of the build out of that existing treatment plant site. So just thinking ahead, everything we're talking about tonight is projections based on growth. And the growth is what we're projecting in the comprehensive plan. So the 2040 comp plan says, you know, these are the growth projections, these are the build outs for all the different land uses, and that's the best information we have available to project into the future for the next 10 years. So with that being said, when is the next plant needed? Right now we're thinking that we're gonna have to start building that plant in about year 2030 or 2031, with having that additional capacity online probably by 2032. Water tower, we're not planning to have another water tower in the near future, but we are planning to build some additional storage in at the new water plant site when that's constructed. So those are kind of the big picture, summary. I'm going to get into them a little more specifically.
Aaron, is that the trend? We'll never see another water tower in our community, or does it depend?
There is another water tower plan, but it's outside of the 10-year window. So like in the comp plan, we show additional elevated storage, but that'll be outside of this planning window.
Okay. Thank you.
So new wells, I'm planning another well to the existing plant in 26 or 27, and that'll kind of max out the, supplying the water to that treatment plant. So supply will meet how much we can output at that point, and then we need to start looking at new wells for that future water treatment plant site. What would we do differently in the next 10 years to manage costs and growth? We looked at making sure we have a robust trunk utility system. Specifically, we talked about the southwest area, making sure our mains are sized appropriately so we don't have pressure issues when we get down there, since we won't have a water tower in that zone. So that's one thing we looked at. We talked about land tonight, obviously, and let's have that conversation early so we don't get, caught off guard and have to make quick decisions. So to Brent's point, as it relates to land for public services, we can do the same thing for water treatment facility and develop, different scenarios in a form of a matrix to understand what makes the most sense for the city for acquiring land for the future water treatment facility. And then obviously continuing our practices of odd even, watering, tiered billing structure. Those are all good things in your 10-year financial plan. So here's the existing water system. I'm sure y'all are aware, but we have 6 wells, the water plant, and 2 towers. And we have 3 pressure zones within many, many miles of distribution piping in the city. One thing I want to just point out tonight is when we think about water supply and water treatment, we talk about something called firm capacity. And think about it this way. So your water system's reliable if you can fight a fire on your maximum demand day of the year with your largest well out of service. So that's a lot of things that go bad at once, but for engineers and for planning purposes, you want to be able to do that when all those things are going wrong on top of each other. So that's how we plan for water system improvements in the city of Carver. As I mentioned, these demands and future needs are all projections based on growth. Here's a picture of the 2040 comp plan, future land use area. So that really dictates how we look at things. And this is a table from the comp plan. By 2030, we're projecting a population of just over 10,000, which is basically maxing out that existing water treatment plant at that point from a daily max day demand. And then by 2040, you're looking at possibly a population of 15,000 people. So obviously at that point, we're nowhere close to being able to put out enough water to serve the needs of the city of Carver. This is a chart that I've used in the past. I think it's a nice way to kind of represent, to see where things are at and how things are projected to grow. I call it a trigger chart. And this is showing water treatment, right? So we're in the year, well, this line is off by 1. We're in the year 2024 now, but as you can see here, by the early 2030s, we're kind of at that peak filter capacity in the water treatment plant, as long as things continue on the growth projection that we lay out in the comp plan. So what this figure does is it shows, okay, what happens if we grow a little bit slower than what's projected? Or what if the residents don't use quite as much water as we're using in our assumptions? Well, then you might have a flatter curve, which is that dotted green line. So that would be a good thing, right? It just pushes infrastructure improvements out, but it could go steeper too. So what I have here in the red dots is kind of our maximum days the last several years. So you could see in 2023, we only hit 1.5 million gallons in one day, which was below the red trend line that we are using. So that's a good thing. In 2024, it's still a question mark because we haven't gotten through summer yet. But based on what we've seen with the rainy summer we had, is we haven't even hit 1.5 yet. So I would take that with a grain of salt just because it's been a different year. But again, we haven't hit a 1.8 or a 2 million gallon day this year, which is good to see. So again, it's just showing that it's kind of a general trajectory we're trying to go against. And based on the purposes of our capital planning, I'm using the red line that we are using from the comp plan for growth projections until we have better information. So just wanted to touch on one thing. So future water plant, one area of future Carver that is interesting is there's an area generally north of 212 west of Fleet Farm that seems to have good bedrock geology for a Jordan well in the Jordan Aquifer, which is a higher capacity production well than the FIG wells that we have today. We actually hit well 6 was a Jordan well. That was nested right next to well 5 when we did that project. So we saw it kind of off to the side here, but the yellow is just kind of just so you all know, that's kind of the sweet spot for aquifers that we're going to be looking at. And obviously if you can put wells right next to a treatment plant, that helps just because you have less feet of distribution piping to get the water to the plant. So just one item to note on that piece. Again, well 7, I'm thinking we're in 2027 time frame, going back to water treatment plant 1. I have a cost of $1.75 million on that. And then wells 8 and 9, that would feed the new plant in the early 2030s at a cost of about $3 million projected. So this is just the trigger chart for the wells. It's basically showing what I just said, but in graphical form. Water treatment needs summary. So again, we'd probably be looking kind of along that 212 corridor for the future water treatment plant as it's close to that Jordan Aquifer for our well fields. Right now we're thinking still in that early 2030s for when the additional capacity would need to be online. We'd be looking at an expandable treatment plant, so something that you could mirror and double your capacity very easily. So starting out with something possibly in the 2 million gallon a day range and then being able to expand to 4. And that would take care of us for a long time, for several decades at that point. Plant costs we're estimating at about $15 million. So here's the trigger chart for the treatment plant, showing that additional capacity again being online around 2030. And you can see how 2 million gallons extra gets you well into the 2040s. And then if you double that and do another 2, you can see that you're probably going to be out close to 2050 at that time. So that should be a really sound solution when we get to that point. Just need to make sure you have enough land to be able to expand on that site. So that's what we'll be looking at specifically. Storage, I mentioned, I'm not looking at additional elevated storage right now, but we'd be building in a bigger clear well in conjunction with the water plant. So that would be underground storage that would be made available as part of that project. So here's just kind of the summary of the 10-year needs One item I wanted to point out that I didn't touch on yet was the street maintenance projects. We mentioned that during the street presentation that some of the work that happens on street projects is not directly related to the street funds. It's related to the enterprise funds. So for example, if we need to replace water main gate valves in conjunction with those street projects, the enterprise fund should pay for those improvements versus the street maintenance fund. So what I did is we counted up like all the gate valves that would be within the projects in the near term, and we kind of just prorated an annual amount that should, get us with the ebbs and flows on an annual basis, kind of a general projection of how much money we need to budget towards those three projects for the water system. And I have $55,000 per year for those types of improvements that come up on street projects. So I think with that, maybe I'll pause before we get into sanitary sewer, just to see if there's any questions right off the bat.
Questions?
Does that work?
Yeah, I have one.
Go ahead.
I don't remember what slide it was, but it showed the wells where they were in the aquifer. How do we measure the health or level of those aquifers? Do we?
So we can do test wells, and that tells us like the depth of the aquifer in those areas. We work with hydrogeologists that they pull data from like existing wells, and they are basically able to model like what the bedrock geology is below us, and then that's where they come up with a certain confidence interval where they think we should be searching for drilling wells.
So
but on top of that, we can do test wells. Like if we decide, okay, we want to try to drill a well on this site, you can always do a test well to have a much greater confidence level. So that's something that council would have to decide in the future if we want to do that. But like I said, we just use hydrogeologists to help us kind of narrow it down right away.
And those hydrogeologists tell us that those aquifers are in good condition throughout this projection into 2050.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And our good friends in Victoria can't drill a hole and take all our water.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Okay.
Any other questions? Let's talk sanitary sewer.
Okay. Even more fun, right?
I was gonna say, make it exciting.
Yeah, no one likes unsanitary sewers.
Yep.
Only an engineer would say that.
So much fun.
So sanitary sewer, again, we've talked about most of these last year. There's not a whole lot of new stuff, but thinking about just kind of needs and opportunities. So obviously extending our trunk sewer system in conjunction with development as it's happening naturally and contiguously. So that's number one. We need to do that. So there's trunk utility oversizing that's figured for sanitary sewer. Expanding our trunk system into new service areas as required or strategically. So two big areas are, number one, the Southwest District. That's something that we've talked about in the past. When do we want to make that jump and decide to go south with the trunk sewer? Likewise, Highway 212 is another barrier. That's not a cheap project, but getting under that highway is something that we have to do to open up the north side of 212. So the council has to make that decision of when does that timing make sense for the city. And then using planned projects as an opportunity to extend our utilities. One item is the Highway 61 project that's planned for the end of this decade, and using that as an opportunity to extend a forest main in conjunction with that highway project. And then redirecting flows when systems are at capacity. So we have a known capacity issue that's going to be happening along the Jonathan Carver Parkway trunk sewer system. That pipe isn't going to last forever. There'll be too much flow at some point. So when do we need to redirect flows and go elsewhere with them? And that's the purpose of that force main. So those are all kind of the general needs as I see it. But then just kind of breaking into the various projects. Here's the Southwest extension. I won't really dive into that too much, since we all know about it, but basically getting that trunk pipe to the south to allow development to occur in our southwest district, which has many, many equivalent residential units and many, like 1,000 acres of land that could open up if we do that. So that comes at a capital cost of about $3.5 million. And that is, I should back up, the council reviewed the trunk charge concept for getting those utilities extended and other trunk facilities in the city. So that's something that the trunk charge would help pay for that, among other trunk utility improvements in the future.
Can I interrupt? Is the trunk fee something that we're going to consider for 2025?
Yes, had some conversations with the city attorney on that, and so there isn't a, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but there isn't a formal ordinance. The council would just have the ability to adopt that trunk charge via the 2025 fee schedule. I mean, we'll lay it out and give you a new background. Am I missing anything, Dave?
Nope, that's correct. It'll be an element of the connection charges that anyone who hooks up to sewer and water have to pay. And those are coming with the end of the year fee update for next year.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. I just wanted to double check timing.
Okay, Highway 212 sewer crossing. So another big one to open up development. So there's an existing 10-inch sewer that's under 212 today, but obviously the 10-inch does not have the capacity to take all of the future development north of Highway 212. So the picture I show here, the little check marks, are basically just kind of the near-term development that can happen, and that 10-inch can still service that flow. But anything we want to do going, west along the 212 corridor in the future, that 10-inch just simply won't work. It just doesn't have enough capacity or the depth to extend a gravity sewer that direction. So the plan would be to extend the 30-inch sewer. It's currently on the south side of 212 today. We oversized the sewer pipe within the Carver Preserve development to accommodate this future need. And at some point it just has to get under the highway. But it comes at a price. So right now I have $1.8 million in just to get across that large right-of-way with a steel casing pipe and large diameter sewer. So it's not cheap, but something that'll have to happen at some point. So currently have it in there for 2027. Might be a possibility of extending it in conjunction with some of the other improvements that might be happening should like the public services or water treatment project happen at that time. Again, there's no real definition to that, but that's kind of why we had it in 2027, was just it might fit timing wise. Okay, the 61 force main extension. So this is a project that we've been thinking about actually for a number of years now. When the county redid Jonathan Carver Parkway, we included sleeves under Monroe Drive and under Jonathan Carver Parkway for this future force main. And what that force main would do is it'll take the flows off that 21-inch gravity sewer that goes down Jonathan Carver Parkway and into the Carver Creek lift station, so we don't overwhelm either that pipe or the lift station itself, which would come at a massive cost to redo both of those systems. So instead what we would do is we would set a future lift station on the north side of Ironwood Park, just on the south side of Monroe Drive, and we would basically pump that sewer all the way to our city limit line down by 61 and Old Carver Road, and we discharge into the 36-inch gravity sewer that goes to Chaska and then over to the Met Council Blue Lake treatment facility. So that timing of that is, we thought that in 2029, when the county does the CASA 61 reconstruction projects, that we could also try to complement that schedule and install the pipe. We did that, again, like when they did Jonathan Carver Parkway, we did a lot of water main work with that, And we also did those casings, so just being able to work with our partners at Carver County to develop a corridor for that utility will be important, just because there's a lot of other things that are gonna be in that area. The project constraints, just with the topography, there's some areas that get really steep, so just being able to kind of plan the project out together, I think is gonna be really important. Otherwise, doing it on our own later is just gonna be a big undertaking, so that's why I'm suggesting at least getting the pipe in 2029. And then the timing of when we gotta actually make the switch is gonna be out past that, is my projection. So I'm showing the lift station project in 2034 right now. Could be later, just, it all depends on the growth again. If we don't see the housing in that area happen, it'll be more flexible for how long we can let that go before we actually need to divert the flows and take it out a different way. This is a new item, so obviously we can't neglect existing system maintenance. Couple items that the public services team is looking at, the Spring Creek lift station, replacing those pumps that are in that station. They have that slated for 2025 in this plan at a cost of about $70,000. And then the Carver Creek lift station, which is the one in this picture here, this is the big, the lift station in the city that takes everything out to the city limit line and then over through Chaska to the Met Council system. So we want to make sure that those pumps are well maintained. They haven't been replaced before, so we want to, number one, we want to get the pumps inspected, but we do have capital costs in here for pump replacement, should they need to be replaced. And then also there's basically an air exchange unit in that station that we're looking to get addressed as part of that as well. So that comes at a cost of about $350 right now is what we have in the plan. So again, the summary is here, most of which we went through in detail. The last row of the summary is that maintenance for street projects. So similar to the Water Enterprise Fund, I'm recommending that we include $45,000 a year for sanitary sewer issues that arise in conjunction with our street projects. So with that, I think that's the end of my presentation, and happy to talk sanitary sewer questions.
Questions?
I guess I just have a general question on budget, right? So since these are utilities, right, they're separate from the general, right? We have a dedicated funds and capital for them. So are we looking good on these projects in terms of, I mean, because we have a few bigger expenses coming for the next 2 years. Do we?
Yeah, so answering that in two parts. So one in, I think it's October, right? You'll see the enterprise fund budgets.
That's
right. And then you also see the long-term financial plan, the update. And so the critical piece to that, different than the general fund, is you'll see proposed rate schedule that funds these projects. So not just by monthly rates for usage, but also connection fees.
That's right, okay.
And then from there, you'll see, you'll have the opportunity to make adjustments if something
That's right.
seems too impactful, and we'll have to have those conversations. But that's how that process works.
Okay. And then I just had a question. How is the water tower painting coming? And did we have another well that we were rehabbing, the electronics? Is that on schedule, or is that for next year?
So the water tower recoating project is actually going really well. They're planning, I think their goal is that they want to try to have that project done right after Labor Day. So a couple more weeks to go, but they're doing really well on that project, and everything's going good so far. So, and then the well rehab, we're adding a generator to the well 5 and 6 site. That was part of the 2023 utility improvement project. So I think that generator is actually coming in, or it might be in now, and we should be getting that installed here pretty soon.
Cool.
Any other questions?
Was
No.
curious about the water
Yeah.
tower.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Christy, oh,
Just a comment.
I'm good,
Thanks.
thank you.
Yeah.
This was a, you
Yeah,
know,
excellent.
it is kind of interesting to see what the needs are and how we're gonna do that over the next 10 years. So I appreciate all the work you did on this.
Thank you.
Christy, anything from you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. My only comment is, and Christy can probably remember this too, I remember still to this day, remember the pit that I got in my stomach in 2017 when we were sitting around the table at Church by the River and we talked about the reality of needing to have a new water treatment plant, which ended up being an expansion of the water treatment plant. And at that point, we hadn't done rate increases in years and years and years. So the $12 million or whatever we were looking at that time seemed huge and big and scary. And I think while these numbers still are huge and big and scary, it's great to know that we have a plan and that we're gonna see it and that we're seeing all of this 10 years in advance, and we know it's a little bit of a puzzle where we can kind of slot things in and out depending on need and growth. But this makes me feel way better about things and probably less likely to get that pit in my stomach than I did however many years ago, 7 years ago. So, thank you, well done.
Thank you.
That reminded me, yeah, just kudos on trying to find, projects that mesh with planning the replacement of the main with a road construction project, right? Just having the 10-year plan allows us to plan those things out so that when there's an opportunity to save costs by, co-locating or, doing projects with the county or other city projects, that's just a good job.
All right, thank you. Okay, I think we're ready to move on from that. Thank you. 9.1, communications. Any updates?
I don't have any updates related to the reports unless the council has questions. I did connect with Paul Schultz. There wasn't any damage to the church related to the flood, so we're good there.
You ask and he answers.
Yes,
There we go.
thank you for the fast response.
All right, council updates. Christy, anything from you?
The only thing I would like to say is thank you for everyone dealing with my technology issues and snafus during this meeting. But other than that, I don't have anything.
Thank you. Eric?
Nothing of consequence. I used the Southwest Transit bus to the Renaissance. That was great. If you take it, it's a twofer. You get a coupon if you want to go to the state fair. So
Oh, nice.
you get a free pass to the state fair. Not to get in, but to get there.
Cool.
Lori?
No updates or monthly reports.
All right. Reed?
I had a busy week of meetings last week. So for the county park meeting, the two of the big capital projects that the county had this summer were the boardwalk at Baylor Park getting replaced after being out of service for 2 years, and a new playground at Lake Minnewaska. So the good news is the Baylor playground should be open, the Baylor boardwalk should be open in about 2 weeks, and they started the groundbreaking on the Minnewaska playground last week, so it should be done just about Labor Day, so that's good. And then we had a planning commission meeting on Thursday for the City of Carver. We had exciting talk about chickens again, so some more feedback from the planning commission. They were all generally supportive. I think they had one or two minor language changes, but they were very supportive. And then they also had some work on the zoning ordinance, and more specifically, some of the updates to the, I'm going to screw up the name, the Freeway Commercial District versus the Gateway Commercial District. And then they actually had two developers came and gave their feedback. So that was kind of good to hear from the developers and get their perspective on the thing. So they were generally opposed to more restrictions on, obviously, zoning. But, I think having that feedback was good to hear. But, there's obviously reasons why we need to make zoning decisions. So that's all I have.
I am one of the tens and tens of people who watch the planning commission meetings, either live or video on YouTube afterwards. Can you ask the commissioners to turn on their mics? Because when they don't.
Oh, they didn't have them on?
Not
Oh,
you,
okay,
but
neat. Oh,
just
okay.
asking you to help
Yes,
police that,
sure,
'cause
no
it's just
problem.
really hard to listen.
Oh, sure,
and
no worries.
Riding the volume on your laptop is
Oh, sure.
hard, so thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate that. Let's see, for me, I will see your busy week and race you.
No, yeah.
A couple
Not
things,
very
to what Eric had said, it's cool to see the Carver Station parking lot full of cars, and that was certainly the case yesterday afternoon, when I drove past. So really cool to see folks using that amenity. I know it was, it was never an option to go to the Run Fest, but be able to have state fair service, I know that there are a bunch of folks who are really excited to have that again in Carver. Before I get into my updates of what's been keeping me busy the last couple of weeks, on tonight's consent agenda, which are items that we generally are pretty easy, that we don't have much discussion for, and we pass them all in a group, was the grant agreement for the $6 million from the state of Minnesota's bonding bill. So you guys know how I feel about that project. Just wanted to kind of give it a call out. It's starting to feel real. I'm really excited to see that become official. So let's keep charging on that project. Let's see, August 6th, which was the Tuesday night after we last met, was Night to Unite. I got to ride along with Deputy Sandberg, if you remember her, a blast from the past. They had some of the detectives out working Night to Unite. So we hit 6 parties, which is a lot in 3 hours. It's a little bit of like, okay, we gotta go, let's go. But fun. It was kind of fun to see. She now has a very, very, very unmarked squad car, to the point where it is a Taurus that has a light system, but like no cop car back seat, no bars, and all the kids were like, so where's the squad car? But she made up for it with the tchotchkes and the giveaways that she brought from the sheriff's department. So really good to reconnect with her, and really good to just see neighbors connecting with neighbors. Our first event was up in Timber Creek, where there were some folks who were like, yeah, we just moved in 3 days ago, so it's really cool to connect with some of Carver's newest residents. On August 13th, we awarded, Christy Reed, Lori, and I, awarded the Edith Ann Award to Tim Clifford and Chris Heidman. I might not be saying his name correctly. Their address is 217 3rd Street West. It's in the downtown area. The homes in our historic district, as anybody who, I'm sure Christy can tell you all about it, take a special kind of owner. They generally need a lot more love than house in any other part of our community, and it's really clear that this couple has given this home a lot of love. It's beautiful inside and out. Last week we only got to see the outside, but I had the opportunity to see the inside a couple weeks ago, and it is amazing. If you want to see the inside, Chris has a YouTube channel that shows him decorating the house for the holidays, Christmas, the fall, and Halloween. So really, really cool to see that. Also on August 13th, we had the Creekside Park community meeting. Good to hear from folks. I think I always anticipate that we'll hear from folks who have concerns about the project, but there was a really good mix at this of folks who said, I just got a puppy and I just want to see what the dog park looks like. I'm kind of into pickleball. What are you doing for pickleball? And are they, you talked about how they have to align the right way so that you're not looking into the sun if you're playing at the right time of day or maybe the wrong time of day. So really cool to hear all of that feedback. On August 14th, I had a 4M advisory board meeting. That's part of my role being on the executive committee at the League of Minnesota Cities. 4M is the Minnesota Municipal Money Market Fund. It's a tongue twister, so that's why they call it 4M. But that is where cities like ours put money away for investments. Just kind of a fun fact, the 4M fund has hit a couple of milestone highs. On August 7th, they reached a record high balance of $2.6 billion. So the investments are going in the right direction there. August 15th, I had a League of Minnesota Cities board meeting where we set the budget. Budget is a little bit different for that group this year because if you remember from being at the conference, this year, instead of having a wonky fiscal year that goes from September to end of August, it's going to be effectively a 16-month budget that goes from September until the end of December 2025. So last Friday, last but not least, we had a Carver Business Alliance meeting. Hometown Bank shared their opening date with us, which I I don't know if it's public, but I think it's, if you, it is, if you're paying attention. So they want to be open by, did you catch that?
No, I'm just looking at Dave's face.
He's not talking. I don't think it's a huge secret. They are going to be open the week before Steamboat Days. Steamboat Days is definitely something that they want to be open for, and they were asking, are there any tips for the parade? So everybody's getting really excited about that. With that, Kristy, do you want to put in a plug for Steamboat Days?
We're getting close. We have a lot of fun things planned for Steamboat Days, as always. It's the 6th, 7th, 8th of September. We have one new thing that we're really excited about as a group. I shouldn't say one new thing. We have a couple new things, but one that we're excited about is the parade bus on Sunday. Southwest Transit is providing a bus that travels continuously from the transit station up on 11 to downtown Depot Park to get people back and forth and help alleviate some of the parade parking issues we have. So they are such good partners with us when it comes to helping out with these community events. So we're excited to have them driving Saturday night for us, and then on Sunday. Again, there's the website, so carversteamboatdays.com has all of the event lineup. So please go ahead and check that out. But we're getting ready. We're almost there again.
All right, I forgot we've got one more meeting before Steamboat Days. I was just so excited to hear about it. Yeah, Brett.
Kristy, do you want to mention the Grand Marshal?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh, yeah. So we go out for public input for our Grand Marshal nominations. We had a few that came in this year, and I'd like to note that the person selected actually nominated a different person to be, and then someone nominated him as well. So Public Services, Mr. Paul Schultz is our Grand Marshal this year. And he was chosen. A couple of things that were said, but one of the things was with all the help that Public Services gave to the city during the flooding, so that those guys were out working tirelessly. So it was Paul Schultz, and then the rest of the gang. That was the words. The rest of the gang in Public Works. So we're happy to have Paul be out there too. And he's very community oriented when it comes to Carver. So he was selected by the group. So yay, Paul.
Yay, Paul, indeed. All right, thank you. That's it for my updates. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Councilmember Pershman.
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Sayre. We don't have to do that. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Mock,
Aye.
Councilmember Welch,
Aye.
Councilmember Sayre,
Aye.
Councilmember Pershman,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Good evening.